Live from the campus of the United States Sports Academy in Daphne, Alabama, this is Sports Talk. I'm Dr. Arthur Ogden, your moderator, and each week we have a panel discuss certain issues that have to do with sport. We're going to have a little bit of fun today because it's that time of year when not too much is happening, except maybe the New York Jets are having boxing tryouts in their locker room, using their quarterback as a boxing bag. But we're going to do something that's a little bit different. The panel today consists of Dr. Cromartie, Dean of Doctoral Studies, Ben Billman, who's one of our teaching assistants and instructors in the undergraduate program, and Dean Steve Butler, who's our academic dean. We had taken our own poll for the preseason. We're going to discuss the poll. There are 8 people here on the Academy's staff who did it. One of the interesting things in the top 25, the independents, which included BYU and Notre Dame, there were 2, 3 from the ACC, 3 from the Big 12, 3 from the Big 10, 6 from the Pac-12, 8 from the SEC. Interesting makeups. And the way it panned out was everybody thought that Ohio State should be number 1. All 8 voters voted Ohio State number 1. It got real tricky from that point on. Anywhere from TCU to Michigan State, Georgia on down to Wisconsin. Wisconsin, by the way, which I did not even include. That was my preference. And then Ole Miss, we ended up with Mississippi State at 25. So we're going to take a discussion a little bit and kind of a free-for-all today and talk about that. Ben actually did all of a composition of composite scores and helped us put together this graph, which I know you can't see, that tells us who voted and how. First of all, Ben, let me ask you, what were your impressions when you saw the final tallies?
I wasn't surprised by Ohio State being the number 1 team on everyone's ballot, mainly because they returned basically all the main contenders on their offense, along with who I consider the best defensive player in the nation, Joey Bosa. If you haven't seen him play, definitely watch Ohio State this season. He will stand out on every single play. The other things, like you said, there were 8 SEC teams in the top 25. Being in Alabama, I guess we have to kind of expect that. Being an SEC country, I was a little surprised there were that many, but the SEC is very deep this year. Those are the 2 things that stood out to me.
Joey Bosa plays at a high level, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
Very high. That's why he's not playing in the first game.
First game, that's right.
Dean Butler, what's your overall impression?
Yeah, I'm not surprised by the 8 SEC teams because of where we are, and the SEC every year is way overrated. You know, last year during the regular season, they were talking about the SEC West being the best division in the history of college football, and they went to the bowl games and got their butts kicked royally. I think 2-7, and the only 2 teams that won were Ole Miss and Arkansas, and they both played teams that were 6-6 going into the bowl games. So that myth about the SEC West last year was just that, a myth. I think Ohio State being number 1, I think Kevin Skarbinsky, our local sports writer who does a great job with AL.com, summed it up quite well last year after the Ohio State-Alabama game when he said, why does Ohio State have 3 quarterbacks better than any quarterback in the SEC? And I think that's one of the reasons why the SEC is going to kind of struggle again this year, is because they really don't have any quarterbacks.
No proven quarterbacks.
I guess
there are a lot of quarterbacks that people are believing in, like Jeremy at Auburn.
I guess Mississippi State's probably got the best returning quarterback.
Yeah, he's a good quarterback.
Yeah.
He reminds me of a combination of Cam Newton and Tim Tebow. And I think that's why Mullen recruited, because Mullen was instrumental in recruiting both Cam Newton and Tim Tebow. Dr. Cromartie, it's a Chicago Flash. Give us your impression.
No surprises at all. It falls in line with all of the rest of the prognosticators out there that do these preseason type polls and that. Ohio State unequivocally is depicted number one. Everybody else picks them number one. They've got a great deal of talent returning, and the bottom line is that they still have all three quarterbacks. So they go through the same situation. Last year, they lost their first game, Virginia Tech. Then they got on a roll. Okay? That roll lasted until they won the inaugural championship game. If that happens again this year, they're in, great stead because they suffered any injuries pretty much early on. Nobody would have ever thought that Cordell Jones could have come in there and played the way that he did. But as all the people said, hey, look, you've got a kid who's unproven. Nobody's really had a chance to look at him, see what he can't do. So he brings his element of surprise into the game, which is what transpired and what happened then. But after that, it's a crapshoot. We all sat down and thought about it, and we go through our own personal, decision-making process in terms of how we judge it 1 through 25, and boom, we laid it all out here. At the end of the year, it'll be interesting. Yeah. Let's bring this back out at the end of the year and see where it lies out, because Dr. Butler made reference to the SEC West last year. Well, yeah, they were predicted to be so good because they came out of the gates early on, and they looked like a powerhouse.
Yeah, they wore out those Western Kentuckys of the world in the early season.
But hey, you can surmise it how you want to. The fact of the matter is the schedule lays out the way that it is, and it's going to lay out that way this year. You're going to have some Western Kentuckys, and you're going to have some very powerhouse programs that play. And Western Kentucky was not a bad, program.
Yeah, I know. They're not ranked this year, though.
No.
I want to take a look at two teams here. We've got that I think are overranked. Alabama, we've got here at number 4, and USC. If there were ever a team, and I know that Dean Butler is talking about the hype of the Western Division of the SEC. If there was ever a team that rode the crest of the wave to hype, it's been USC. Forever and a day. So they're up there at number 9 for us. I don't think they're going to be any better than 16. As a matter of fact, I think UCLA is going to be better than them. But I want to reflect, some of you may or may not be aware of the fact that ESPN and the SEC Network have been running some of the top 25 games from last year. I've watched that Alabama and Ohio State game probably 6 times. And each time I look for something a little bit different.
Did Ohio State win every time?
I don't remember. At any rate, the thing that impressed me most was Alabama came out of the gate, flat, boom, 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 boom. Joey Bosa was nowhere to be found. And all of a sudden, they're up 21-6. Then it was as if a button switched, and Alabama started to coast. And Ohio State gets a head of steam, and this has happened between those two coaches before. And the next thing we know, it's damn near a tie game at halftime. Come out in the third quarter, Ohio State, boom, boom, 2 quick scores, one with a turnover, one with a good drive. And you take a look at those Alabama defensive players, and you take a look at the sidelines, Nick was lost, literally lost. He had a look on his face like, oh my God, what's going on, Push the page back up and down. Curious thing about Nick Saban. I think Nick Saban is a great recruiter, but I think he is a better program builder than he is a program maintainer, and I think that was one of the reasons that he even bothered to entertain that Texas courtship. But how about the rest of y'all seen that game? Because the Alabama defense in the third quarter flat out quit. And I mean, they just rolled over, and Ohio State says, well, we're going to take advantage of this. And they did. They took good advantage of it. I mean, they were beating them, and now we're getting the information that Alabama this year is going to have the toughest top 7 on defense. Okay, fine, we'll see. They were supposed to have had that last year. And I just want to put that in the context of where we are this year because of the comments and the hype that went along with the SEC West. But do you guys think that I'm right or wrong when it comes to Alabama and Southern and Oregon? I don't know what Oregon's doing up there at number 5. They don't even have their quarterback yet. They were dependent upon this Eastern Washington quarterback to transfer in. He hasn't even enrolled yet. Comments?
I have to say, I agree with Dr. Cromartie that you've got Ohio State and then you've got a crapshoot of all these different teams. And when you look across the board at the way the 8 voters voted here at the Academy, I mean, there's no consistency. 2 through 25, you get a hodgepodge of rankings and answers. And when you look at the total points that these teams received on our ballots, there's not much difference from about number 5 to number 11 or 12. I mean, you've got a lot of teams packed in tight in that top 15 or so that one possession here or there, one bounce of the ball, and any of these teams could be up at the top 4. Any of them could be out of the top 25.
And the good thing about this is that a lot of this is going to take care of itself. For example, Auburn and Alabama are 3 and 4. And it really doesn't matter who's 3 and who's 4 because they're going to play each other.
I don't think there'll be that at the end of the season.
So that'll take care of itself. TCU and Baylor will play each other, so that'll take care of itself. I personally believe that whoever wins the TCU-Baylor game has to go undefeated to make it into the 14 playoff.
I think you're
because
right.
they don't have a championship game.
Right.
And I think last year there was some question whether or not Ohio State was going to get in over TCU and or Baylor. And then TCU the last week of the season just bludgeoned somebody by like 102 or something.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a little bit of exaggeration, but it was a big score, and everybody was saying, how can you be number 3, win 56-10, and drop to number 5? I think they dropped all the way to number 5, didn't they? Yeah.
Your point is well made, particularly about the SEC. Clemson has 111 points in our poll. Florida State has 110, and they have to play each other.
Mm-hmm.
But they also have to play Georgia Tech and Boston College. And I think one of the dark horse contenders this year. Watch out for them, folks. You heard it here first. Watch out for Miami, Florida. That quarterback they've got down there, was it Yahweh or something like that? He is and he played a whole freshman year as a starter.
See, the thing is, it goes back to the whole scenario of this preseason process, okay? You can go through the elaborate process where some of us probably do. We sit down, we take a look at the teams, we look at who's coming back on offense, who's coming back on defense, who their quarterback is, what is some of the tendencies of the coaches and in terms of a defensive scheme, offensive scheme, and close games and all that stuff.
Changes too.
And it doesn't mean a thing. It doesn't mean a thing.
He's absolutely right. This is all based on potential. And having coached forever, you don't win on potential, you win on performance.
Well, with a lot of potential, we all be coaching.
Yeah, and that's what Dean Butter was referring to. He said, "It'll work itself out," because you don't win on potential, you win on performance. But I still am amazed at some of these choices. I'm surprised that Michigan State is as low as it is. I think Michigan State ought to be in the top 4. I don't think Oregon belongs in the top 20, to tell you the truth.
I agree with you on Michigan State. I think Michigan State could very easily go undefeated if they beat Ohio State.
I quite agree. And the irony
That's
is
a big if.
That's a big if.
Mark D'Antoni, the coach up there, who he was an assistant to for years? Nick Saban. As a matter of fact, he was with Nick Saban at Toledo, and then at Michigan State, and he just took over for Nick when Nick left Michigan. Nick tried to get him to go to LSU, but Michigan State made him such an offer he couldn't help it. And I just, what do y'all think about LSU? I mean, everybody's kind of hot and cold about LSU right now. What's the deal? First of all, they don't have a quarterback.
They don't have a quarterback. That's their
problem.
problem.
They're going to throw Harris in there.
To be honest with you, the LSU-Alabama game last year, set offense back 50 years. That was one of the worst quarterback performances for both teams I think I've seen in a long time from 2 good teams. And you think these guys would be able to recruit quarterbacks? Yeah,
that's really, really strange. Good point about Alabama. When was the last time they really, really recruited an outstanding quarterback? I mean, I don't think A.J. McCarron was an outstanding quarterback. He was a good game manager, and if that's what Nick wants, that's fine. But what, and if Kiffin had not been there, Blake Sims would still be, playing backup in the secondary. And the kid's a good athlete, and he deserved a chance. And I'm glad that he broke through. But it was Kiffin and Kiffin's system that gave him that opportunity. And who knows what's going to happen this year.
Well, that's a true testament to Lane Kiffin, because now that he's going on a second year, this will be the opportunity for him to do the things that he's done in the past with quarterbacks. He might be able to bring in one of those high-profile quarterbacks to Alabama.
Well, he did bring one from Dallas or something, Oklahoma. One of them's from Oklahoma.
Well, they got the kid that transferred from Florida State.
Florida State, but that's Coker. He transferred in.
Yeah.
The kid from Oklahoma is a Lane Kiffin recruit, and you give him a chance to learn the system, and that he may be that kid that emerges.
Yeah, but I can't think of a Lane Kiffin quarterback who has made it in the NFL. I just can't think of one. But maybe he'll emerge someday. Well, we also have some other ones in there. I think Georgia Tech is way, way too low. They're down there at 22. I think Missouri is going to surprise some people again. They'll sneak up on them. I think Wisconsin is way too high. First of all, they've got a new coach. I know they've got a good running back. I had this debate with my 14-year-old son last night. I said, Wisconsin not good. They'll never replace that running back they had last year. And Benjamin goes, Pop, they've got a really good running back. Just right on his tail. I said, well, we'll see. But they still have that jerk of a new head football coach. And he goes, well, I'll give you that. And UCLA, I still think UCLA is a top 8 team. I really, really do. And I don't know. How do you guys feel about UCLA and USC and all of that? I like him at UCLA.
It's
Moore is a good coach.
Moore's a good coach. When you and I were young, before Ben was born, that was the game for the Pac-10 championship every year. Actually, it was Pac-8
every year.
Yeah, but now it's kind of UCLA and USC play to see who gets to get beat by Oregon in the championship game.
But I wouldn't sleep on Arizona and Arizona State.
Amen.
I think the winner of that game might be the front runner when all is said and done in the Pac-12 to get to the Pac-12 championship game.
Yeah, I
know.
know.
They're in the South though.
It's like I said earlier. Let's hold on to these sheets.
Yeah.
At the end of the season, let's bring up the teleprompter. We'll put it up there, and let's make those comparisons to see where it all pans out. Because it could very likely roll out that we were all wrong.
Well, I don't know what you mean by we, Kimasabi.
Okay.
It'll most likely roll out that I was 25 for 25. But.
Yeah, I know. And if that's the case, well, you and Walt Disney can write another story. Thanks for tuning in. Enjoy this year's college football season. We've had fun with this poll. I know you're probably going to try to do your own. And we will stay on top of this, and we'll take the suggestion and take a look at it at the end of the year. For the United States Sports Academy's Sports Talk USSA, this is Dr. Arthur Ogden, wishing you a good day in sports.